to a couple of videos, and the doom of it all gets on my nerves. The preaching about um, prepping and um, the obsession um, about the future being only one version of things going really bad. Um, and it feeds a scarcity model that I find to be interesting because in the early years of the Obama administration and through to almost to the end, but for the first, well, actually not the first year, but second year on through to the seventh year of his administration, ammunition in retail stores was incredibly scarce. Um, 22 ammunition was incredibly scarce the entire Obama administration. It would sell out as soon as it came in, every time. And as soon as Trump's elected, and actually as you start to see the election cycle come through, the ammunition becomes plentiful, but slightly more expensive. But it's never out of stock. I haven't seen 22 ammunition out of stock in the last 2 years. And think about that as a thought exercise. And that's where my mind goes a lot. It's um, not jumping in line with all the other videos that pretty much say the same thing over and over and over and over and over. The scarcity mindset of ammunition hasn't been there for the last 2 years. Even though you've got people rioting and clubbing each other and marching around in these cities with protests and people walking around with bats and shields and bicycle helmets. Um, Nobody's stocking up on ammunition in a large enough fashion to cause a scarcity. Even though you've got a um, a lot of talk going on in like after the Florida shootings, all this and since then, and even right now, this guy threatening to nuke the population if they don't turn over their assault rifles. Um, there's no scarcity of assault rifles. They're not inflated in price. The price inflation of that mindset, the evidence around us says that people are not worried, or the people that are capable, or maybe the better way to look at it is the people who are capable of seeing it, or the people who are capable of seeing what's coming, already have more ammunition than they know what to do with. They already have more firepower than they know what to do with. And the one thing I've never seen any talk about in shortage um, has been survival food and other stuff associated with that, um, associated with that type of prepping. I'd be real curious if there's anything going on right now with any scarcity models in any other form of doomer gloomer purchasing. But I wonder if the reason why there's no scarcity of ammunition and firearms is that everybody capable of seeing it already prepared in that area. And I'm wondering if part of why precious metals are depressing right now in the marketplace may have something to do with the idea that those that are capable of seeing it have already prepared as much as they feel they need to prepare for the most part. That the majority of people that are capable of seeing the truth already have their position, because at some point you have enough precious metals. Um, Even with cash, I was watching a video this morning today. The people that are capable of preparing probably already have prepared a cash position. And then at some point you've got to go back to your business. You have to go on and make responsible choices and plan for a future that's not going to end, and you get back to your way of life. You try to look at rebuilding rebuilding the parts of your life that you were supposed to be that you always focused on in the past. But the idea that you make plans as if an EMP is going to hit, or that you make plans as if the world's going to come to an end. One of the biggest things that I think is possible in this future is some form of a recession, that you just lose your job and you can't pay your mortgage, or you, as a business, have to cut back your business to the point where you can't manage your debt load. The ability to manage your debt exposure and your ability to take care of your monthly living expenses through a long, protracted recession, to me, is the most likely scenario to prepare for. The idea that you can weather the storm of not being able to earn income, that you can convert what you have into your payments. There's a lot of history where the banks come in and take back the property. That happened in 2008. That happened in the Great Depression. That was common practice throughout the 1800s. The idea that a bank could just call your loan because they wanted to. The idea that the bank will take your assets if you can't make the payments should be one of your biggest preps. What's your plan for making your payments on the things you owe money on? Your house, your place to live. What's your plan? What's your plan if you lose your ability to make enough income to pay your expenses? What's your plan if you don't lose your job, if your job's secure, but inflation makes it untenable to live and have electricity in your house and have the things that you need? These people freaking out in France right now, partially they're freaking out about the increase in that gas price. But what that was the straw that broke the camel's back. That was the working class reaching a point where they say, you know what, we can't afford to make it. We're having to take on more debt every year to maintain a basic standard of living. And they see other people not working and maintaining a lower standard of living, but having no responsibilities and not having to go to work every day. Somebody that's on government handouts doesn't really care what the price of fuel is, because they take the bus, or they don't have to get to work every day. The ability to not pay your bills, or take Venezuela, the ability to not create an income, but you have inflation. That's where my mind is going, because I think I'm more likely to have an event where the bank takes my house than I am to see a global calamity collapse society. In my case, one of the pieces of advice I would give to somebody is, and it may seem backwards, but in this moment in time right now, while you have instruments available, have several lines of credit that you have access to. It may sound counterintuitive that you would borrow money and get yourself further in debt, but whatever comes is going to have a duration. It's going to have a 3-year duration, or a 1-year duration, or a 5-year duration, or 10-year duration of struggle. And if you're going to be out in the street anyway, having access to a line of credit against your house, you have a mortgage, but you have another secondary line that you have access to. They'll give you $50,000 of unsecured of secured line, like a home improvement type loan. And think of it like an insurance policy. It costs you like $75 a year to maintain that access to capital, but you want that in place before you lose your job or before you lose your ability to earn. Now, granted, they can shut it down or they can collapse your line, but wouldn't it be nice to have that wiggle room in that area, either and having credit cards that you don't have a lot of money on. This idea that we're going to just run around and use our cash to go out and buy up everything because there's because there's a collapse of some sort is it may be the case, but you're more likely to encounter a situation where you need to cross a chasm of bills are higher than income, and it may seem counterintuitive to take on debt in that moment, but if if the situation is a shared situation where everybody's struggling, the person that has the best credit is going to survive to get across to the other side, and you're not going to be able to go out and get a loan after the fact. You're not going to be able to have the access to that money. And frankly, having $5,000 in silver under your mattress versus $50,000 of available credit, that available credit is more likely to get your muffler fixed or get your situation taken care of, and then just make the minimum payments and ride out the storm and hope for the best. If it's a bad situation, it's a bad situation. But having a strong credit score and having access to leverage or access to credit is just as important as having some cash or some precious metals. It's a matter of having everything. And obviously, you try to pay your debts off. You try to not have debt, but most people owe money against their house. That's just the way it is. In my case, I'm probably 12 years away from being able to have my house paid for, and that's something I'm looking forward to someday. But I don't want it ripped away from me 7 years before I pay for it. After all the years of struggle to get something paid for, I'll be damned if I'm going to have it ripped away from me because the economy tanks. I like my home. I like where I live. I've been responsible my whole life. And yeah, I think that we're going to be seeing some hard times in the future. But the thing I think that is also going to be a part of this equation is that if it's not a total absolute debt jubilee collapse, I think what's going to happen is that a lot of people are going to lose their homes. A lot of people are going to lose their way of life, and there's more than one way to ride out a really bad recession or a depression. If it doesn't completely collapse, it's just as easy to play their games and play their credit games. The people that own the credit, the banks, they want this system to continue, and they're going to do everything they can to keep that game going, which will include making more losers out of us so that they can be on the winning side of things. I think that's the biggest fear, in all honesty, is the idea that the people with the most power have the most ability to protect themselves at our expense. And they want to loan you money when you don't need it, and they want to take all your stuff the moment that you're struggling. It'd be wise to have those credit lines in place when you don't need it. Because right now, I think we are sitting in the calm before the storm.